Good afternoon, everyone. I am so happy to be here today. This is normally not the time I come on, and I know that with this broadcast, I was a few minutes late, but I was in another meeting. So today I wanted to really bring on a qualified mortgage consultant because the market is so hot out there, buyers and sellers, and everybody's kind of wondering what's going on, what's going to happen, and there is the talk of the new stress test. So we thought, rather than, kind of having these conversations one-on-one, we thought we would come in here. I would interview a mortgage specialist, somebody that I've partnered with. She's an amazing woman, and really help answer these questions for you guys. And if you can share this information out, you never know who is out there looking to either buy or sell, or really wants this information to make the right decision that is right for them in this moment in time. So I appreciate your support. I love bringing experts on so that we can have these really good conversations that could help you. So let's bring Maria on. I want to introduce Maria Pezza to this broadcast as the mortgage professional. Welcome.
Thanks, Nazira, and I really appreciate you including me to this conversation today.
Yeah, I think it's an important one because I know with you talk to people all the time, and these questions are coming up. COVID has played some real, things on us, and now the new stress test. So can you sort of enlighten us as to what is going on in the marketplace and what the stress test can eventually maybe do or not do for a prospective buyer or seller?
Yeah, so they proposed a stress test, a change to the stress test probably about 4 weeks ago. Even though they're looking for commentary and feedback, it will be effective June 1. We've already received updates from various lenders as to how they're going to treat this new stress test. Right now, it is for anybody who's looking to purchase with 20% or more. So that's really important. Right now, they have not explained how it would affect anybody who's putting less than 20% or what they consider a high ratio mortgage. But for those who are at that 20% or more, it would mean roughly, really high level calculation, anywhere between 4 to 5% reduced purchasing power. So if you qualified for 100,000 pre-June 1, would mean you would qualify for around 95,000. So that definitely will affect, what people can afford or what people can go out there to purchase. Whether they have more down payment and they're just choosing not to, and then that's fine. But if anybody who's, right at that 20% mark and they need every penny, this will definitely affect what they can afford to purchase.
Just on that again, just a quick question.
Yes.
Does it also mean on purchase price, like if you're buying under $1 million or over $1 million?
Definitely over $1 million, yes. Anything under $1 million, if it's less than 20% down, yes.
Okay.
If it's less than 20% down, they haven't confirmed what the rules are, but it sounds like they're going that way, but they haven't firmed up all the details as of for June 1st, which I think we are going to get an update probably by sometime next week or mid next week, which doesn't give us much time. What we've heard from some lenders is anybody who has a firm purchase and sale by May 31st will follow old rules. Anything where purchase signed, completed purchase and sale agreement June 1st going forward, we'll have to follow the new rules. So there's a lot of gray areas that they still haven't finalized. New construction, what happens with that? So there's a lot of areas that really we're trying to investigate, and Mortgage Professionals Canada is really doing some research with that and trying to.
And that's what I want to highlight is it's so important to work with a mortgage broker, so that you can be kept abreast of what's going on, because rules are changing, things they're bringing on, it's changing for people. So it's better to kind of have that professional guiding you to know that, what's best. And what I don't really like when I work with my buyers, it's like everybody's like rate shopping. What's the rate? But there's so much more to getting a mortgage than just rates. I mean, that is, of course, one component. Can you kind of shed some light on really what does this mean for a buyer? You know, if they're looking for a mortgage, there's so many elements, right?
There are so many elements in looking when you're looking for a mortgage. Yes, there's definitely low interest rates out there, but there's things that you need to be really careful about when you're looking at a low interest rate offer that's being proposed to you. You have to ask other questions like, what are my prepayment options? If I needed to break this mortgage, whether I sell and can I take this mortgage with me, or can I get out of this mortgage if I need to refinance, or if I have a large sum of money that I want to be able to put down, can I do those things without incurring large penalties? There's some mortgages out there that have great interest rates, but they don't realize that there's all these behind the scene penalties, and it's actually not worth for them to break that mortgage, but they don't realize that until they're too far in.
Right.
So that's definitely one component that they really need to take into consideration. When you're looking at your mortgage, you also have to look at, do you want a 30-year amortization? Do you want 25? Do you want to be able to, that flexibility to spread your payments when times are tough? Nobody ever anticipated things like COVID, right? So if that wasn't an option that you were able to do with your existing mortgage, you might have had to struggle to make those payments when you could have used those funds for some other, life altering, debts that you wanted to acquire or that you needed to pay down, but you had to kind of find that balance. So those are important things that you need to ask when you're working with your mortgage agent. You also need to understand, what is your goals? Is this a short-term transaction or is this a long-term transaction? And if it's short-term, you might appreciate the variable interest rate because the variables are very flexible, and there's only a 3-month interest penalty. So if you had to break out of that, then it's you know exactly what your upfront costs are. Whereas if you're going with a fixed, you don't realize what some of those penalties may be in the long run.
And again, that's a really important point that you bring out, right? Like when people understand the difference between a variable product and a fixed product, and depending on what their objectives are, short-term, long-term, excuse me. So I think, again, this is where the professional comes in to help the potential buyer to make sure that their end goal is being met. Give me 1 second.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
So that's okay.
The other thing I really want to address here, and I think because I get this a lot, the market is hot, has been hot. We are seeing a shift, in terms of a month ago, what was happening with the seller's market and the bidding wars and the amount of multiple offers that were going on. We are seeing some form of a shift right now in some areas, some properties. Can you kind of help buyers understand, the idea of becoming such a strong market and not putting yourself at risk?
Sorry, I know you're struggling there with your. I think what you're asking is, like, in a hot market like this where there's competition, and I know from a mortgage perspective, we're always a little weary about going in without any conditions, for sure. You really have to understand your financial situation. You have to understand the risks that you're putting yourself in. If you're overbidding on a property, for example, and the evaluation of the appraisal doesn't appraise at that value, as the purchaser who's gone in with no conditions, you need to be prepared that if you've overbid 100,000 and it doesn't appraise, you're going to have that additional 100,000 available, because the lender will not finance you on the purchase price. They will only lend on the appraised value. So that's, I would say, probably the most significant component of risk that you, as a purchaser, you would need to really understand. So I know that there's always a bit of a struggle. Purchasers want to go in and they're, especially if they've had gone in 1 or 2, 3 times and they've been outbid, they feel like they don't want to be defeated, and I want this house. So you really need to talk to your mortgage professional, really make sure, understand the risks associated with that, making sure you have that fallback. So you need to know what your max is that you can afford, including that fallback.
Right. And I think, again, this also, depending on how much percentage down you're putting, can have a huge impact in case the property doesn't appraise. Let's say you're putting 20% down, maybe 25% down. You probably have a better sort of situation than if you're only putting a minimum of 5% down or 10%.
Oh, yes.
You're really in a position that it's difficult. It's going to be difficult if the property it doesn't appraise. Am I right?
Yes, yes. And when you have to remember that when you're putting in less than 20% down, you're also relying not only on the lender, but you're relying on the insurer. So it's CMHC, Sagen, or Canada Guarantee. Those are the three that we have in Canada. And they have their own unique rules. And also when it comes to like their total debt service ratios that they're willing to accept. So some of them are a little bit more flexible, but at the end of the day, they have to also accept the property. So that's a condition that when you're doing less than 20% down, if you don't want to put any other condition, that's the most important because you need to have them review that file. Somebody who's got what they consider a pre-approval, a pre-approval only gives you to what they think you can afford, but the last piece is the property. If you're putting less than 20% down, that insurer can say, no, there's a problem with that property or that condo complex, and we will not back it up. So even if lender A says we're willing to do it as long as insurer does it, it's unfortunate. So it makes it for a bit of a challenge, especially when it's less than 20% for sure.
Right. And I think this is a really good conversation because when you're working with like a professional realtor, a professional mortgage broker, and can be guided, at least there's no sort of those surprises that can come up where you're really stumped and you're in a position where perhaps you've made some decisions that aren't in your favor. And I think that having these consultations, like I know I've been doing a lot of them, and we do them on Zoom right now, obviously with COVID, and we're trying to keep that contact to a minimum, but still being able to kind of look at the objective of the buyer, looking at what they're qualifying for, or at least a pre-approval to have some number in place based on income and credit reports, all of that stuff that you do, right? To kind of give us the idea of, okay, this is sort of the range that you can look in, and then we can sort of educate the buyer of, how to position their offer when it's time to make an offer. Is it conditional on financing? Is it going to have to be, is there going to be an insurance required, like the insurer required, right? We want to make sure the risk we mitigate as much risk as possible, because at the end of the day, we want the buyer to have a successful closing, the seller to have a successful close, right? So, I know the market's hot. I know things are going like crazy, but for us as professionals is to protect our clients.
Exactly. And just to add one little thing to that is maybe a tip. As a purchaser, I would advise definitely working closely with your realtor and your mortgage professional and making sure that if you're looking at buying something that's less than 20% down, as soon as you're looking at a property, you have your mortgage agent go out there and say, can you please confirm? And the insurer, if you contact the insurer directly, they will tell you, do they have an issue with that property? If they say no, then perfect. We can tell the lender, we've already addressed that. Please make sure. And then if you decide to put an offer on that property, we can say, okay, lender A, we've already contacted insurer A. Please ensure you assign this to insurer A, because we know that they've kind of gave it our blessing indirectly, and that helps alleviate a lot of that stress when you're purchasing. Even if you ask for 1 or 2 days, the insurer wouldn't review it in 1 or 2 days, but if you do that pre-work, that definitely helps making sure that you're not looking at a property that an insurer won't look at or consider versus one that is perfectly fine, and you can then move forward. And then it's up to the purchaser with regards to how much risk they're willing to take with conditions.
Exactly. And I think that's another really good point, because when you're looking online and you're looking at rates and calculating your own mortgage and saying, hey, I think I can do this, you can't do all of that preliminary work without the help of a professional, right? So because you can call the insurance on behalf of the buyer or the property and get some more information. You may have already done a deal on that address. Like if it's a
Exactly.
complex, you know a lot more than just looking online as a buyer, not having all of that experience behind them. And I think this is especially in this market, it is so important to align with your professionals that are going to be guiding you, and ensure that you're protected to the best of everyone's ability. I want to just highlight what you're talking about when an insurer perhaps might not insure a particular property. Is this more for condominiums, or do you also find this for freehold properties?
Mostly for condominiums, whether it's a townhouse or high-rise complex. But there are some properties where they may have issues with, and I would say it's probably more rural, where there may be, my goodness, my brain is not thinking, but well water versus septic. So some of those little details, some insurers will not get involved in when they're outside of the city. Whereas when you're talking GTA, it would be definitely townhouse condominiums, high-rise condominiums, that type of thing, where usually the reserve fund is not managed properly, or the management company is just not managing the condo corp in a fashion that they're willing to invest in. And so the insurer will choose to walk away from that type of transaction.
Right. And again, these are these nuances, right, that a buyer potentially may or may not know. You fall in love with that townhouse and you think this is the one. It looks beautiful from the inside, but there are other factors that have to be considered. The lender's considering, or more so the insurer is considering, especially when it's under 20%. So I think this is where the buyer is in a position where they need that opinion, from others who have perhaps, gone through it, like a professional mortgage broker, a realtor. And so really our recommendation would be align with those professionals that you feel comfortable with. Reach out to us. Like, I'm here, Maria, I know you're open. So for anybody watching this, like, reach out if you have questions. Please share the video. I mean, this is really about sharing information and helping people make those types of decisions. This is probably one of the largest purchases a buyer makes, is a home, especially in today's market in the GTA. Would you agree?
Oh, definitely. I would say definitely the largest purchase somebody would be making. And I would be reaching out to as many professionals, interview, like you said, you have to create that bond. You have to be able to be on the same wavelength and be able to understand each other, and making sure that your realtor, your mortgage professional, your financial planner, whoever else you have behind you, kind of are all working for you, and are all ultimately their goal is to protect you as the consumer, the end purchaser, and making sure that they have your best interest at heart.
Yeah, and I think, obviously, I know you've been a realtor. I know you're partnered with your husband. I've been a realtor for many years, and we've learned different things. Things that have happened, and even from those issues or concerns that have come up, we can protect the potential buyer from things that we already know that could be an issue. And I think in today's market, though things are shifting, new rules are coming up. It's, again, more information is better, so that you can make those right decisions. I think that, there's lots of information online, and that people are obviously, reading different blogs and Google and but your situation is your situation, and there can be many levels of things that you need to know about that may not be on Google. And so again, the importance of aligning with professionals is in the best interest of the purchaser or seller, depending on what transaction is happening. Can you just sort of, lend us some sort of, do you have like a process you would say to a buyer that's maybe just starting to look, and they're thinking, oh, we want to be in a property in the next 3 to 6 months? Would you kind of give them a guideline of where to begin?
With regards to, a purchaser just starting out, I would say the first few things, there's 3 main components that you really need to consider. One is your credit, your income, and then your down payment. So if you don't know what your credit score is, you should go for the free credit reports, both Equifax and TransUnion. Very important to review them both because some report on one, some report on both, and it's very important. I just found out, according to according to TransUnion, my husband has passed away. He's deceased because somebody reported him as being deceased. Now he has a very I'm gonna say, I don't want to say common, but he has a name that there are many versions of that name. So it's very easy to mistake him when somebody's checking off something, but so important. He's, I guess, in previous times where they've requested credit, only used Equifax. And so he had no idea. So credit is very important. Review your credit and review it with your mortgage agent so that they can go over all the details and understand how to improve it if there's anything that needs to be improved and how to correct anything that's incorrect. Other thing is income. You need to be employed. You need to have, if you're full-time, you need to be non-probationary. And there's a whole bunch of other criteria. And, definitely consult me or any of your mortgage agent if you're dealing with somebody to go through that in detail. Then your down payment. You need to make sure that you have the funds available for your down payment. They need to be easily accessible. You need to be able to provide confirmation. Is your down payment portion a portion of a gift? Like, are you receiving gifted funds? All your down payment cannot be gifted funds. You have to have some of your own resources. So if you're planning 3 to 6 months out, there's ways to get all of that information documented properly so that you're ready to go the time when you put in a purchase. And if you consult, then you're ready to go working with your realtor, and there's no question about what you can afford, what you can't afford, and do we have all the documents in place so that it's a simple process once we're dealing with a lender.
Yeah, and that's what when I meet with my buyers, it is important to get that pre-approval. Yes, there's a rate lock in there, and that also helps, in the event the rates start to climb, you are sort of protected. But more so, it's like, how much do we qualify for based on the information that you just spoke about, down payment, income, and all of that, to be able to start looking at properties. A lot of people I know, they do it the other way. They just want to go out looking at home. And what the sad part is, they fall in love with something, and when we go backwards, it sometimes becomes very disappointing that, oh gosh, we can't afford it, or it's not in the bracket that they will get approval. And then it's really daunting, because now you compare every other home to that particular home, and for all parties involved, it just becomes more of a negative experience. And we really like to make sure our buyers have the best experience, because it's very exciting to buy a home, and especially if you're a first-time home buyer, and we like to position you in the winning position. So I think this is why I wanted to do this interview with you, because for a lot of people, even just those basic steps can help them really begin to plan that process. And so I really want to thank you for this. I think this information is amazing. For those people that are watching this on replay, hashtag this as replay, because Facebook allows it to be in their algorithms that they'll show it to more people if more people are engaging with this. And if you found this information helpful, please give us a like or comment and share it out, because really at this point in time, a lot of people are starting online, and these videos can help them. So Maria, I want to thank you for your time today, your expertise. I mean, you've always been such a good resource for me, and I really want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you very much, Sarah. I really appreciate giving me the opportunity to speak and just to provide some insight into all the things that are going on today.
Yes, and I think we'll have you back on, as we get more information on the new stress test, and maybe even as we have the stress test in effect, maybe we can talk more about what that's looking like, because I know this is so new and there's not a lot of information out there. So I'd love to have you back. And as we continue this conversation, buyers that are out there, remember that we're only a phone call away. So reach out, and really, I just want to wish you a wonderful day, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
So I hope that was helpful for you guys. Like, I know that, there's so much going on out there, and there's lots of different things that you want to accomplish. I know COVID hasn't played the greatest part, and you may want to, sort of position yourself at this point, and maybe it might be a 3, 6 month, even a year out or longer, align yourself with professionals that can help you. So with that being said, remember to be kind to yourself and others. I'll catch you again on another show.